The radio crackled, and Jenna Cade's heart skipped. Dispatch to all units. 2 boys reported missing near the old logging trail. Camper found burned. No sign of the children. She didn't hesitate. "Come on, Rocky," she said, snapping the latch on his harness. The Belgian Malinois stood instantly, ears perked, muscles tight. He wasn't just trained, he was battle-tested. And right now, his eyes locked on hers like he already knew this was no ordinary search. They sped through the backroads of Green Hollow. People whispered as they passed. The townsfolk knew Rocky. Knew he had pulled a girl from a frozen lake last winter. Knew he'd once disarmed a man holding a knife to his own throat. But they didn't know about the scars. About the dark nights he whimpered in his sleep. Only Jenna knew that. The forest loomed ahead, thick and heavy. Smoke curled like a warning. When they reached the clearing, firefighters were already there. The camper was nothing but blackened metal and melted plastic. A small bike lay on its side, untouched by flame. "Camper burned out around 2 a.m., said Deputy Ford, stepping over fallen branches. Neighbors saw smoke, but figured it was just someone camping off-grid. No one reported anything until the mother called this morning. Said her sons, 11 and 8, never came home last night." Jenna crouched beside Rocky. "You ready, boy?" she whispered. Rocky didn't bark. He just sniffed once, then lowered his nose to the ground. Ash stuck to his snout as he moved in tight circles near the camper's door. "Get back," Jenna warned the others. "Let him work." Rocky paused at the rusted back panel, then pawed at it. Once. Twice. A short whine escaped his throat. "He's found something," Jenna said. She stepped in, yanked the warped door open, and crouched low. Inside was charred silent, until Rocky pushed past her and barked sharply at the floor. Jenna followed his lead and pried at a warped section of wood. A faint sound, barely a breath, then a whimper. "Oh my God," Jenna gasped. "They're in here." 2 boys, huddled in the hidden space below the floorboards, covered in soot and trembling. One had blood dried on his temple, the other just stared with wide, empty eyes. "You're safe now," Jenna said, gently pulling them out. "It's okay." Rocky stayed beside them, nuzzling their hands, his body tense but calm. The younger one clung to his brother and whispered, "He told us not to scream. Said if we moved, he'd come back." "Who?" Jenna asked softly. "The man," the older boy said. "He had a knife. He locked us in and said the fire would cover everything." Jenna's stomach dropped. Ford's face turned pale. "We thought it was accidental. Just a fire." "No," Jenna said, her voice tight. "This wasn't an accident. This was meant to hide something." Paramedics arrived fast. The boys were lifted onto stretchers, but they kept looking back, at Rocky. "He found us," the younger boy whispered. "He's a hero." Rocky stayed close, tail low, eyes alert. As the boys were taken away, he looked up at Jenna and gave a small, low bark. "Yeah," she whispered. "I know. Something's off." Back at the cruiser, Jenna rubbed Rocky's ears. "What do you think, partner? That man's still out there." Rocky didn't move, just stared back toward the woods. The forest felt different now. Not just smoke and ash. It felt like secrets. Secrets trying to stay buried. Jenna looked at the burned camper one more time. "We're not done here, are we?" Rocky's ears twitched. He already knew the answer. The boys were safe, for now. But Jenna couldn't shake the way the older one had said it. Flat. Empty. He said not to scream. He had a knife. Words no child should ever have to say. The medics had taken them, but the story they left behind clung to Jenna like the smoke still curling through the air. Rocky was pacing again. Not sniffing randomly, focused. Methodical. His nose skimmed the blackened earth like he was reading a book only he could understand. "You think he's still around?" Deputy Ford asked, watching Rocky. "I think Rocky's telling us something's missing," Jenna replied. The charred camper creaked under her boots. Most of the structure was gone, burned through and hollow, but something about the back wall didn't sit right. Rocky was pawing at it again, same spot as before, but not where they'd found the boys. This was deeper into the frame. A corner warped by fire, barely standing. Suddenly, Rocky let out a sharp, urgent bark, louder than before. Jenna rushed over. "What is it, boy?" He clawed at the floor again, then backed up and sat, ears high, tail stiff. That was his signal. Something was here. She grabbed a crowbar from the fire truck nearby. "Help me with this," she told Ford. Together, they wedged the bar into the floor. The burned wood groaned, cracked, then gave way with a dull pop. Jenna reached in and pulled out a flashlight. Half melted, and then beneath it, a small piece of torn denim, dark with blood. Ford whistled low. "That's not from either of the boys." "No," Jenna said quietly. "It's not." Rocky began sniffing the air again, this time circling toward the edge of the clearing. His nose twitched. He moved faster now, pulling hard on the lead. "He's got something," Jenna said. They followed Rocky down a narrow path behind the camper. The trail was overgrown, barely visible, but Rocky was locked in. He pulled them nearly 50 yards through thick brush before stopping cold. There, hidden under a pile of moss and leaves, was a shoe. A man's shoe. Jenna picked it up. It was heavy, mud-soaked. Inside, stuffed deep in the toe, was a torn scrap of paper. She unfolded it slowly. Scrawled in jagged pencil were the words, "He watches from the trees." "What the?" Ford started, but Jenna cut him off. "Get this to forensics. And check for other missing kids in the area, going back. I don't know, 5 years. Ford hesitated. "You think this is bigger than just the boys?" "I think someone planned to disappear them," she said. "And I think they've done it before." Back at the site, Rocky had returned to the camper. He paced near the burned mattress frame. Jenna crouched beside him and ran her hand along his fur. "You okay, buddy?" Rocky nudged her hand, then let out a low, steady whine. It wasn't fear. It was frustration. He knew they were missing something. The younger boy's words echoed in her head. "He told us not to scream." She stood and turned to Ford. "Let's bring in a thermal drone. I want the woods scanned, every inch." He nodded. "I'll call it in." As the sun began to drop behind the trees, casting long, twisted shadows across the clearing, Jenna looked back at the burned camper one last time. "Why hide them just to burn the place down?" she muttered. "Maybe he changed his mind," Ford offered. "No," Jenna said, shaking her head. "He didn't want to kill them. He wanted to scare them. Control them." She turned to Rocky. "And you weren't just tracking scent, were you? You were tracking fear." Rocky barked once, short and sharp. Jenna's phone buzzed. It was the hospital. She answered. "Cade." A nurse spoke softly. The older boy's talking again. "He says the man had a mask. Called himself Mr. Gray." Jenna's breath caught. "Mr. Gray," she repeated. The nurse continued, "Says he heard other voices, like the man had brought kids there before." Jenna's eyes locked with Rocky's. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. The name echoed in Jenna's mind, Mr. Gray. The boys said it like it was a ghost story. Like he wasn't just a man, but something worse. And the way they clung to each other when they whispered it, it made Jenna's blood run cold. Back at the station, no one could find anyone named Gray in the area. No known aliases. No records. Nothing. It was like the man didn't exist. But Jenna knew better. Rocky knew better. He hadn't stopped pacing since they got back. His eyes were fixed on the station window, staring out at the tree line beyond the parking lot. Silent. Focused. "He's never this unsettled," Jenna said to herself. When she opened the back door, Rocky pushed past her and trotted toward the woods behind the building. "Rocky, wait." But he stopped at the edge. Sniffed. Sat down. Jenna stepped beside him. "What do you see?" she asked. A gust of wind rushed through the trees. The sun was gone now. All that remained was a dull, blue haze and shadows. Long, bending shadows. Her phone buzzed. "Chief Morales. We've got an old record," he said. 5 years ago. A hiker found a backpack in those same woods. Had a missing boy's name in it, Danny Costner. Case went cold. Never solved. Jenna froze. "Was it anywhere near the camper site?" 2 miles north, he replied. "Near the Ridge Trail." Her heart thudded. Rocky rose to his feet again, nose twitching toward that very direction. She hung up and whispered, "Let's go, boy." The woods swallowed them fast. Jenna walked quietly behind Rocky, flashlight off. The crunch of twigs and leaves beneath her boots felt too loud. Every step made her nervous. "Who's Mr. Gray?" she muttered. "And how long has he been doing this?" They reached the ridge trail in under 10 minutes. Rocky slowed down. His tail stiffened. He sniffed near a crooked oak, then barked once, low and fast. Jenna crouched. There, beside the roots, was a string, red and frayed. Rocky nosed at the dirt beside it until she brushed away the leaves and saw it. A button. Children's clothing. She swallowed hard. This isn't new. They pressed on. Half a mile deeper, Rocky suddenly growled. Short, clipped, and tense. Jenna froze. Then she heard it. A rustle. Not an animal. Not the wind. Footsteps. Someone was nearby. She reached for her flashlight but didn't turn it on. Instead, she whispered, "Show yourself." Nothing. Then a low voice came from the dark. Calm. Almost amused. "You shouldn't be here at night, Officer Cade." Jenna's heart jumped. "Who's there?" Rocky stepped forward, snarling now. The voice chuckled. "Dogs are loyal. But they don't always understand what they're protecting." Jenna raised her light and flicked it on, but the beam caught nothing but empty trees. Footsteps again. Fading fast. She shouted, "Stop! Police!" But whoever it was had vanished. Rocky tried to charge forward, but Jenna called him back. "No. He wants to draw us out." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she noticed something at the base of a tree. A carving. Letters scratched into bark, MG. Jenna traced it with her finger. Fresh. "He was just here," she whispered. She turned to Rocky. "He knows who we are." They backed out slowly, never turning their backs. Back at the station, Jenna locked the door and sat down, staring at the whiteboard filled with scattered reports and maps. "Why burn the camper?" she asked. "Why leave clues?" Rocky lay at her feet, ears alert. Because this wasn't just a cover-up. This was a game. And Mr. Gray was still playing. The carving on the tree haunted Jenna all night, MG fresh. Deliberate. It wasn't just a mark. It was a message. And the voice in the woods? That wasn't a ghost. That was a man who knew her name. But when the sun rose, the department wanted her back on routine patrol. The chief said the leads were thin. That maybe the Mr. Gray the boys mentioned was just a nightmare character. Rocky didn't agree. He refused to settle. Every time they neared the forest during patrol, he'd pull on the leash, whining, growling, then sitting with his ears fixed forward like he was waiting for something, or someone. "He's just shaken up," Deputy Ford offered. "No," Jenna said, watching Rocky stare into the trees. "He's focused." By the third morning, Rocky was pacing the station again. Not out of boredom, but frustration. Jenna gave in. "All right, buddy," she said softly, unhooking his leash. "Show me." Rocky took off, not in a sprint, but in a determined trot. He moved with purpose. Not zigzagging. Not sniffing randomly. This was direction. Memory. The trail curved away from the old camper site and toward a slope covered in thick ferns. Rocky paused once, sniffed the air, then darted into the underbrush. Jenna pushed branches aside to keep up. That's when Rocky stopped. He circled twice, then started digging furiously at the dirt beneath a rotten log. "What is it?" she asked, kneeling beside him. She dug with her hands where he scratched. A few inches down, her fingers hit fabric. She pulled gently. A child's shirt. Blue. Faded. Ripped at the shoulder. Jenna turned it over, and her stomach sank. A name tag inside the collar. Nico W. Rocky sat back, watching her, his chest rising fast. Jenna stood up and called it in. Back at the station, Chief Morales looked at the shirt without emotion. "We don't have any active missing kids by that name." "Then check old records," Jenna insisted. "Check nearby counties." He sighed. "Jenna, it could have been dumped here from anywhere. No body. No crime scene. Could be nothing." She slammed her hand on the table. Rocky has never been wrong. The chief didn't answer. Later that night, Jenna stared at the shirt laid across her kitchen table. She searched the name, Nico Weller. Nothing recent. But then, a buried forum post from a small town 3 hours east, missing since 2018. Age 7. Disappeared from his backyard. No clues. Case cold. Jenna whispered, "What are you finding, Rocky?" He sat beside her, tail tapping once against the floor, then going still. The next morning, Jenna went back to the site. This time, alone. She stood near the rotted log where Rocky had uncovered the shirt. The wind shifted. And that's when she saw it, something half buried under brush, 20 feet away. She stepped closer. A stuffed rabbit. Weather-worn. Eyes missing. Tucked into its side was a rusted zipper pouch. She picked it up, heart pounding, and opened it. Inside were torn scraps of what looked like drawings. Stick figures. A tree. A tall man. And in big letters, one name written over and over, Gray. She staggered back. He wasn't a myth. He was a pattern. A predator. That night, Jenna returned to the chief. I'm telling you, we're not looking for someone who just snapped. This is someone who's done this before. Carefully. Repeatedly. Morales looked tired. We can't build a case off a shirt, a toy, and your dog's instincts. Jenna held his stare. Then I'll build it without you. She left the office and walked straight to her cruiser. Rocky was already sitting in the back, eyes locked on the forest. I think we're getting close, she said. He gave a soft, low bark. Just then, her phone lit up. It was Ford. I just checked something. The name Nico Weller? There's a report. Not from this state, but from a campground 2 hours away. A camper burned down. Sound familiar? Jenna's hand tightened around the wheel. Rocky stared into the woods, ears twitching. They weren't looking for a rescuer anymore. They were hunting a monster. The wind howled through the clearing as Jenna dropped to her knees beside Rocky. His paws were coated in dirt, his nails broken from relentless digging. He'd been clawing at that patch of ground all morning, and now the truth lay right beneath them. Jenna brushed away the last layer of soil and froze. Metal. A scorched, rusted hatch. What is this? Deputy Ford whispered behind her. Help me open it, Jenna said, her voice barely steady. Together, they pulled. The hinges groaned, protesting the years of silence. The smell hit them first, old, bitter, rotten. Jenna lowered her flashlight. There was a pit. And inside, scattered toys. A stuffed elephant. A cracked action figure. A tiny pink sandal. Then, bones. Small. Fragile. Human. Ford turned pale. Oh God. The pit wasn't wide, but it was deep. And it wasn't random. The items were arranged, lined up neatly. As if someone had placed them there with intention. Reverence. Or control. Rocky sat back, panting. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just stared into the dark hole like he understood what had been uncovered. Jenna knelt at the edge. One toy, a red truck, had something scratched into the side. She leaned in closer. Danny. Her heart cracked. Danny Reyes. Missing 6 years ago. His face had once been on flyers across 3 states. Everyone assumed he'd been lost in a flood near his home. But here he was. Or part of him. Ford radioed it in. We've got human remains. Multiple. We need forensic teams. Now. Jenna didn't move. She couldn't. She stared at the pit like it had opened up a hole inside her too. She whispered, "How long has he been doing this?" Rocky whined softly beside her and nudged her arm. Jenna looked at him. You knew. You always knew. More officers arrived. Crime scene tape went up. Cameras flashed. But none of that mattered to Jenna. Her eyes were locked on the past. Every name she'd seen. Every file she'd read. Every mother who never got answers. Morales arrived, breathless. Tell me this isn't what I think it is. Jenna stood. It is. He peered into the pit, his mouth tightening. We're looking at a serial predator. He's been burying them under our feet, she said. And we missed it, Morales replied, jaw clenched. The forensic team lifted out the toys one by one, placing each in labeled evidence bags. Rocky turned away. Jenna placed her hand on his back. You did it, boy, she whispered. You brought them home. One officer called out. There's something else. Paper. Under the bones. They reached in carefully and pulled out a damp, partially burned notebook. Jenna took it with gloved hands and opened to the first intact page. Drawings. Childlike. Trees. A man with no face. A circle with names inside. Danny. Nico. Evan. Leah. All marked with red XS. Another name had no X. Kai. She stared at it. Who's Kai? she asked out loud. Ford stepped closer. Could be the next one. Jenna flipped through more pages. The final one made her skin crawl. It was a date. This Friday. Today was Wednesday. She looked up. He's planning something. Morales nodded. We need everything. Dental records, missing kids' databases, school rosters, anything with the name Kai. Rocky suddenly stood. His ears perked. What is it? Jenna asked. He walked over to the edge of the clearing, nose high, sniffing the wind. Then he barked, loud. Sharp. Jenna turned to Ford. Someone's watching. Ford raised his flashlight, scanning the tree line. Nothing. But the feeling was undeniable. Like eyes on their backs. Like they weren't alone. Rocky growled low in his throat. Jenna grabbed the notebook and stood beside him. I think we just woke him up, she muttered. Back at the station, they ran the name. Only one match close by, Kai Morrison. Age 10. Foster home just 8 miles out. She called the foster coordinator immediately. Is Kai safe? Is he at home? The woman on the other end paused too long. He was, this morning. But he didn't show up for school. We assumed he was just sick. Jenna's blood froze. She looked at Rocky. He's got another one. Without waiting, she grabbed her vest and keys. Let's go. Rocky leapt into the cruiser before she even opened the back door fully. As the engine roared to life, Jenna looked at the toy truck on the passenger seat. One name had been etched there. Danny. But the next name, the one with no red X, was Kai. And there were only 48 hours left. They found Kai Morrison in time, but just barely. Rocky had tracked the boy's scent from an abandoned bus stop to a shed hidden deep in the woods. Kai was bound, scared, but alive. The man who took him hadn't gone far. In fact, he'd been watching the search from less than 100 feet away, thinking he'd never be caught. But Rocky found him. His real name was Leonard Griggs, a former drifter with a sealed juvenile record and a long history of working under aliases. No home, no family, just a trail of quiet jobs and vanishing children. He had slipped through cracks for over a decade, hiding behind kindness and chores, cleaning gutters, walking dogs, repairing fences. Everyone knew Lenny. No one suspected Mr. Gray. Until now. The town of Green Hollow was in shock. They had passed him in grocery aisles. Hired him to fix porches. He even volunteered once at the church bake sale. The betrayal cut deep. As news spread, reporters swarmed the county courthouse. Victims' families, some who had never found closure, came to watch. The Reyes family sat front row. So did Kai, holding a teddy bear tighter than any kid should have to. Jenna sat with Rocky just outside the courtroom before the trial began. She clipped on his ceremonial badge, the one he never wore on duty. You ready? She whispered. Rocky licked her hand and gave a small bark. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy. When the prosecutor laid out the case, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The notebook with the names. The burned camper. The trapdoor. The bones. But it was the boy's testimonies, quiet, shaky, brave, that sealed the silence in the room. He wore gloves, the older boy said, and a mask. He said he'd come back if we told. But Rocky found us, the younger added. He saved us. And then came Jenna. She stood at the witness stand, uniform crisp, voice trembling. I've seen a lot in my years, she said. But I've never seen an animal so determined to speak for those who couldn't. She turned toward the jury and then to Rocky, sitting quietly near the judge's bench. He didn't just find the boys. He led us to the truth, to the graves, to every clue that mattered. Without Rocky, we wouldn't have found Kai, or the others. He gave the lost their voices back. When she stepped down, Rocky stood. The entire courtroom rose to their feet. Some clapped. Others cried. The judge banged the gavel, but even she couldn't stop the emotion. It didn't take long for the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Griggs didn't say a word. Just stared straight ahead, as if none of it mattered. But Jenna saw it. When Rocky walked past him, his shoulders flinched. Outside the courthouse, the town gathered. A podium was set up. The mayor spoke first, thanking the officers, the community, and the families who never gave up. Then Jenna stepped forward with Rocky by her side. She held a small box in her hands. Inside was a custom K9 medal. She knelt and fastened it around Rocky's neck. He looked up at her, tail still, eyes full. "You did good," she said softly, voice breaking. "You did so good." People clapped again. Children hugged their parents tighter. And in the quiet that followed, the Reyes family approached. Mrs. Reyes touched Rocky's head gently. "You found my son," she whispered, "and brought him home." That night, Jenna sat on her porch with Rocky curled at her feet. The stars above were bright, but her mind was still on the dark, the pit, the drawings, the names. "Promise me something," she said, rubbing his ear. "If there's ever another, you'll let me know. I'll follow." Rocky nudged her hand and rested his head on her lap. Some stories end in courtrooms. Some in tears. But this one ended in something else too, truth. And a dog who never gave up. If this story moved you, if Rocky's courage touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone who believes in second chances. Comment below with a heart if you think Rocky is a true hero. And subscribe for more real emotional stories that remind us how powerful the bond between animals and humans can be. Because sometimes, it takes a dog to uncover the truth the world refuses to see.